The last October sunlight catches the leaded glass windows of Aunt Carol's Charleston mansion, throwing sparkles across the pristine white columns. I stand on the wraparound porch, my leather satchel heavy against my hip, listening to the sounds of laughter drifting through the window panes. My fingers smooth the lapel of my professorial blazer, checking for non-existent wrinkles. A burst of particularly loud laughter makes my hand pause on the brass doorbell. Inside, someone mentions Madison's name, followed by the unmistakable twitter of Aunt Carol's social laugh. The one she reserves for particularly impressive achievements. The door swings open before I can press the bell. Mother stands there in her pearl gray cocktail dress, a flute of champagne already in hand. Her smile tightens at the corners when she sees me. Charlotte. She steps back, gesturing me inside with a wave that manages to be both graceful and dismissive. You're late. Traffic on 195. I step into the foyer, the scent of gardenias and furniture polish wrapping around me like an expensive stranglehold. Everyone's in the parlor, Mother says, already turning away. Madison was just telling us about her summer internship. Of course she was. I follow Mother down the hallway, past the portraits of dead Monroes who probably would have disapproved of me too. The click of my sensible heels on hardwood is drowned out by the swell of voices from the parlor. And then the senior partner said I had real potential. Madison's voice carries through the doorway. He thinks I could make junior partner by third if I... She breaks off as I enter. For a fraction of a second, something flickers across her face. But then Brian's arm tightens around her shoulders, and the moment passes. Look who finally made it, Brian announces to the room. He raises his scotch in my direction. The other Monroe who went north. A few relatives titter politely. Grandmother Margaret doesn't even look up from her needlepoint. Charlotte teaches somewhere up north. Mother explains to Cousin Sarah's new husband, her tone suggesting I run a particularly unsuccessful dog walking service. Now Madison, tell us more about that partner's yacht party. I sink onto the edge of an antique settee, sliding my satchel beneath it. Inside, the latest issue of the Princeton Literary Review peeks out, my name listed under Distinguished Contributors. I push it deeper into the bag. Some of us are going places, Brian Stage whispers to Uncle Robert, unlike others who just teach. The crystal champagne flutes tinkle with shared amusement. I think of my empty apartment the night I got my Princeton position. The way I'd sat alone in the dark, clutching the acceptance letter, knowing no one would understand what it meant. Couldn't you find something more impressive? Mother had asked when I told her. With your credentials, surely some law firm would take you. A butler appears with fresh drinks. I decline with a small shake of my head, watching Madison hold court from her perch on the silk brocade sofa. She's wearing a pale pink sheath dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. Her diamond tennis bracelet catches the light every time she gestures. Madison's going to be the first Monroe at Princeton since great-grandfather William. Grandmother Margaret announces to the room, finally looking up from her needlework. Her steel gray eyes sweep past me as if I'm part of the furniture. Now there's a legacy to be proud of. The room murmurs in appreciation. I think of the faculty parking permit in my blazer pocket, the way Madison's eyes had widened in my classroom doorway on the first day of the semester. Dinner is served. Aunt Carol announces from the doorway. She raises her glass. A toast first to our family's true Princeton star. Glasses rise around the room. Madison's smile falters for just a moment as she catches my eye across the crystal sparkle. To Madison, the family chorus echoes. I'm directed to the far end of the mahogany dining table, wedged between Cousin Timothy's 7-year-old and the empty chair where the gardener sometimes joins us for holiday meals. The distance between my seat and Madison's place of honor beside Grandmother Margaret could be measured in social light years. My literature professor is so demanding. Madison says halfway through the soup course, her voice carrying down the table. She expects us to actually analyze the text instead of just appreciating it. Some people teach because they can't do, dear, Grandmother Margaret interrupts, patting Madison's hand. Don't let her discourage you. Madison's eyes find mine across the candlelight and fine china. For a heartbeat, I see something like understanding pass between us. Then Brian launches into another story about his latest business, ventures something about cryptocurrency and yacht timeshare sand. The moment evaporates like morning fog over the Charleston harbor. I sit silently, watching my family bask in the glow of Madison's borrowed brilliance, thinking of the paper sitting in my grading pile back in Princeton. The one with her name at the top, full of superficial analysis and inherited charm. The one I failed. Aunt Carol's silver dessert cart tinkles across the hardwood floors, bearing an elaborate creme brulee with fresh berries arranged in concentric circles. The candlelight catches the sugar crystals, transforming them into tiny diamonds. Madison's favorite, Aunt Carol announces, positioning the cart between Grandmother Margaret and my cousin. I remember how she always begged for this when she visited during college breaks. Brian reaches across the table for the serving spoon. Speaking of college, have you thought about law school applications yet, sis? Dad always said you had the mind for it. The porcelain dessert plates click against the mahogany table as the butler distributes them. Each one bears the Monroe family crest in faded gold leaf. I trace the worn edge with my fingertip, remembering how Father used to tell me stories about the brave women in our family tree. To Madison's brilliant future, Grandmother Margaret raises her crystal goblet. The overhead chandelier creates a constellation of light points across her pearls. May our family the success it deserves. Mother beams, her third glass of wine lending extra warmth to her cheeks. Not everyone can handle Princeton's pressure, but our Madison was born for it. Some of us are meant to succeed. Uncle Robert's voice carries down the table. He pauses, swirling his brandy. Others, well, they teach. The family titters. A fork scrapes against bone china. The butler's shoes whisper across oriental carpet. Interesting. My voice emerges quieter than intended, but it cuts through the laughter like a letter opener through heavy cream paper. Because I'm Madison's professor. The silence drops like a leather-bound volume in an empty library. Forks freeze mid-air. Wine glasses pause at lips. Mother's face drains to the shade of her best linen tablecloth. Brian's mouth hangs open, displaying the half-chewed remains of his creme brulee. What? Madison stares at her dessert plate. Her shoulders rise and fall with a deep breath. I recognize from our office hours the one she takes before defending a difficult thesis statement. Professor Monroe. Her voice carries the same steady tone she used in last week's class presentation. She teaches literature and critical thinking, required course for freshmen. Grandmother Margaret's hand trembles. Red wine splashes onto the tablecloth, blooming like a rose in snow. Charlotte, explain yourself. I set down my napkin, folding it precisely along its creases. I'm an associate professor in the comparative literature department. Madison enrolled in my section this semester. And you never thought to mention this? Mother's voice climbs half an octave. I maintain strict professional boundaries with all my students. The words come easily after years of faculty meetings, including family members. Madison pushes her untouched dessert away. Professor Monroe gave me the first C of my life on my initial paper. You what? Brian slams his glass down. Wine sloshes over the rim. The analysis was superficial. I meet his glare steadily. Like most first attempts from students who've never had to think deeply about literature. You could have helped her more, Mother's voice cracks. Given her extra guidance. She did. Madison straightens in her chair. More than anyone. She made me actually work for once. This is outrageous. Uncle Robert stands, his chair scraping back. Using your position to deliberately make things harder for family. No. Madison's voice rings out, the room stills. She made me better. She was the only one who did. Cousin Erica leans forward, her reading glasses glinting. I think it's admirable. Teaching requires real integrity. I didn't know it was her until I saw her photo in my dorm. Madison looks around the table. On the department website, she never said a word about being family. Uncle James catches my eye from the far end of the table. His slight nod carries the weight of 30 years teaching high school mathematics. Well, Grandmother Margaret dabs at the wine stain with trembling fingers. I suppose we'll need to speak with the department chair about reassignment. No, Madison pushes back her chair. The legs scrape against hardwood with a sound like fingernails on silk. I'm staying in Professor Monroe's class. I've learned more in 8 weeks than in 4 years of private school. Darling. Mother reaches for Madison's arm. Think about your future. I am. Madison's voice carries the same conviction she showed defending her midterm thesis. For the first time, I'm actually thinking, not just performing. The silence stretches. Outside, autumn leaves scrape against leaded glass windows. The butler hovers in the doorway, uncertain whether to clear the abandoned desserts. I fold my hands in my lap, feeling the steady thrum of my pulse against my grandmother's pearl ring. The one Father gave me when I earned my doctorate. Madison's latest paper showed remarkable improvement. She's developing a unique, critical voice. But what about family loyalty? Brian demands. Loyalty? Madison's laugh holds no humor. Like when you told everyone at the club about Charlotte's rejection from Harvard Law. The one she never actually applied to because she was already accepted to Columbia for her PhD? Mother's wine glass tips. Dark liquid seeps into white linen like blood and snow. The grandfather clock in the hall strikes 9, each chime echoing through the silence. I think of my office back at Princeton, where Madison's latest paper sits in my grading pile. The one where she finally found her voice. The one that earned her first A. I believe this concludes dessert. I stand, smoothing my blazer. Madison, I'll see you in class on Monday. We're discussing Virginia Woolf's concept of the inheritance of anger. As I turn to leave, I catch Madison's reflection in the dark window. For the first time tonight, she's smiling. I sat in my car and drove home. During the drive, I am thinking about the first time I graded her. Back during the midterms, Madison's first paper sat untouched on my desk for 3 days. The Monroe family crest at the top of the page caught the fluorescent office light, hand-drawn in the corner with the kind of casual artistry that came from years of practice at garden parties. Below it, 12 pages of superficial charm and inherited confidence. I uncapped my red pen. Later that day, after the results were out, my office door creaked open. Madison stood in the threshold, mascara smudged beneath her eyes, my feedback clutched in her manicured hands. The paper trembled. Is this some kind of joke? Her voice cracked on the last word. A C-? I gestured to the chair across from my desk. Sit down, Madison. She sank into the leather seat, her pink cashmere sweater bunching around her shoulders. The paper landed between us with a soft thud. Your analysis of Woolf's stream of consciousness technique was surface level at best. I tapped the relevant paragraph. You spent more time describing her garden parties than examining her actual literary innovation. High school teachers said I had a natural gift. For what? Stating the obvious with perfect grammar? The words came out sharper than I intended. I softened my tone. Madison, you can coast on your name or actually learn something. Your choice. She stared at me, really looked at me for the first time since walking into my classroom 3 weeks ago. Recognition flickered in her eyes. We're related? Yes. Which changes nothing about your grade or my expectations. The phone on my desk lit up. Mother's number. I turned it face down. Madison's shoulders straightened, a flash of that inherited Monroe steel. I want to rewrite it. You have until Friday. She gathered her paper and stood, pausing at the door. Does the family know you're my professor? No, and I'd prefer to keep it that way. After she left, I pulled up her admissions file on my laptop. Perfect SAT scores, glowing recommendations, a personal essay about overcoming adversity when her horse lost a dressage competition. I closed the file and opened my gradebook instead. The whispers started in the faculty lounge a week later. The Monroe girl. Professor Wilson's coffee cup clinked against the counter. Certainly comes from good stock. Shame about her struggling in your class. Everyone struggles in my class. I stirred cream into my tea. That's how they learn. The department chair mentioned something about reviewing grading standards. Wilson's eyes met mine. For certain students. The pristine white halls of Princeton suddenly felt very small. My phone buzzed that night as I graded papers in my empty apartment. Madison's name lit up the screen. I can't do this. Her voice was raw. Mother says I should switch professors. Someone more. Understanding. Understanding of what? That you're capable of more than you've been asked to give? Silence stretched between us. Then, I'll see you tomorrow at office hours. The next morning, Madison arrived with dark circles under her eyes and a completely rewritten paper. Her designer bag was smudged with ink, the strap fraying where she'd worried it between her fingers. I wrote it 4 times. She pulled out the draft, no family crest in sight. I kept hearing your voice saying, dig deeper. I read the first paragraph, then the second. By the third, something inside my chest loosened. Here was analysis. Here was actual thought. Here was a mind beginning to wake up. This, I looked up. This is writing. Really? She leaned forward, hope warring with exhaustion on her face. Yes. Now tell me about Wolf's use of temporal shifts in the dinner scene. Her eyes lit up. For the next hour, we dissected the text line by line. When she finally gathered her things to leave, she paused. I've never had to work this hard before. She twisted the strap of her bag. It feels different. Different how? Like I'm finally using my own voice instead of the one they gave me. After she left, I added her paper to my grading pile. Outside my window, autumn leaves skittered across the quad. My phone lit up with another call from Mother. I let it ring. Word spread through the freshman dorms. Soon Madison wasn't coming to office hours alone. She brought other students, children of privilege, struggling to find their own voices beneath the weight of expectations. We formed study groups, discussion circles, places where names and legacies didn't matter. Another assignment was brutal. A comparative analysis of modernist perspectives on class structure. When I handed back the papers, Madison's hands shook as she turned to the last page. A-. She stared at the grade, then at me. I earned this? Every word of it. That evening, I found a note slipped under my office door. Professor Monroe, for the first time in my life, I'm proud of something that's actually mine. Thank you for seeing past my name to who I could become. I pinned it to my bulletin board, next to the faculty committee summons about my grading policies. Outside, the October wind rattled the windows, carrying the first hint of winter. Thanksgiving loomed on my calendar like a gathering storm. But for now, in this quiet office, as evening settled over campus, I watched another young woman discover her voice. Not the one her family gave her. Not the one society expected. Her own. The phone on my desk lit up again. Mother's number flashing like a warning. I let it ring. Now the lights and scenery of my neighborhood took me back to reality. I took a long shower, prepared new plans for the lectures, and went to sleep. With days passing by, our lectures grew funnier, and students were developing critical thinking in their own ways. I was proud of all of them, each of them in a different way. Now, almost a month later, the photo sits in its simple, silver frame, slightly askew on my Princeton office desk. Madison and I at the Modernist Literature Symposium, both leaning toward the podium where Joan Didion spoke about self-respect. I straighten the frame, then return to grading the stack of papers before me. My phone buzzes. Another text from Madison. What if I switched my major to comparative literature? The economics lectures feel hollow now, like I'm just memorizing other people's thoughts. I set the phone down without responding. Let her sit with the question. Real decisions deserve silence. A knock at my door interrupts my grading rhythm. Office hours start at 2, I call out, not looking up from an analysis of Wolf's stream of consciousness technique. Not here for office hours, sis. Brian. I raise my head to find him filling my doorway in an expensive suit that still has the tags tucked inside the sleeve. His confident smile falters as he takes in my office, the walls of books, the framed academic journals, the window overlooking the historic quad. Nice view, he says, trying to sound casual. Better than that cubicle they stuck you in at William and Mary. That was 12 years ago, Brian. What do you want? He drops into the chair across from my desk, loosening his tie. Can a brother check on his sister? Mom's worried about you, you know. All alone up here in the ivory tower. I have 70 students and 4 graduate assistants. I'm hardly alone. Speaking of students, he leans forward, lowering his voice. Madison's been talking about changing her major, throwing away all that economics preparation. Her father's livid. I shuffle my papers into a neat stack. Madison is legally an adult. Her academic choices are her own. Come on, Charlotte. We both know you've influenced her. All those little study sessions, those literary discussions. He spreads his hands, all Southern charm. Just encourage her to be practical. That's all we're asking. Like you were practical? How's that cryptocurrency venture working out? His jaw tightens. Some of us try to build things, create opportunities. Not everyone wants to hide behind books their whole life. My phone lights up again. Another text from Madison. Found my old journals from high school. Every entry was what they wanted to hear. Not one real thought. How did I not see it? I turn the phone face down. I think we're done here, Brian. I have papers to read. Just think about what you're doing. To the family. To Madison's future. He stands, adjusts his cuffs. Oh, And Aunt Carol wanted me to officially invite you to Thanksgiving, says Madison insisted. After he leaves, I open my email to find a message from the department chair. Subject line, Commendation for Exceptional Mentorship Program. I click delete without reading it. I don't need their praise. That evening, I make my monthly donation to the First Generation Scholars Fund. A small amount, but regular as sunrise. Then I open Madison's latest paper, The Performance of Success, Artifice and Authenticity in Fitzgerald's Gatsby. My red pen hovers over the first paragraph. Strong thesis. Clear voice. No trace of the superficial analysis that marked her early work. I write excellent observation in the margin, then catch myself smiling. The next morning brings a flurry of notifications. Aunt Carol has tagged me in a Facebook post. So proud of our 2 Princeton women, the Monroe legacy of excellence continues. I nearly choke on my coffee. 3 months ago, she'd asked if I still worked at that community college up north. A text from my mother follows. Darling, what's your teaching schedule this semester? Thought I might drive up, see your classroom, if you're not too busy. I set my phone to silent and pull up the academic journal submission guidelines. Madison's research on gender roles in 19th century sensation novels shows promise. Time to list her as my research assistant. The days blur into weeks. Madison declines the family's autumn gathering to attend a Victorian literature conference with me. Mother starts asking hesitant questions about tenure-track positions over rushed coffee dates. Even my youngest cousins email for advice about college applications. Then comes Madison's late-night call. Her voice small, almost childlike. I'm not coming to Thanksgiving. I need to figure out who I am when they're not watching. I know, I tell her. Will you go, even though I won't be there? I look at the folder on my desk labeled Quiet Victories, Madison's first A paper, her journal publication acceptance, the notes from students she's tutored in the writing center. Yes, some battles need witnesses. They'll blame you for changing me. No, I run my finger along the folder's edge. They'll blame me for helping you become yourself. Different thing entirely. After we hang up, I add her latest email to the folder, the one where she wrote, I finally understand what you meant about the difference between a voice and an echo. I pack the folder in my satchel, between copies of academic journals and student papers. Tomorrow I'll drive south to Charleston, to the family table where I once sat silent. But this time, I'm bringing evidence of a different kind of legacy. One built on truth instead of appearances. On effort instead of inheritance. This time, I'm bringing proof that sometimes the greatest victory is helping someone else find their voice. Even if it means their first true words are no. The next day, the sunlight bounces off the brass numbers on Aunt Carol's front door, 1842 Plantation Drive, Ive. The same door I've walked through 100 times, always with a stone in my stomach. Today, the stone feels heavier. My Princeton department chair blazer still carries the crisp scent of dry cleaning. Inside the breast pocket, a folded academic journal presses against my heart like armor. Through the window, I catch a glimpse of Madison's high school graduation photo displayed prominently on the mantel. Her Yale acceptance letter framed beside it, though she never enrolled there. The cherrywood frame matches the one holding her Princeton acceptance, the one that arrived after she was already my student. Aunt Carol opens the door before I can knock. Her face shifts from welcome to wariness in the space of a breath. Charlotte, how professional you look. The foyer smells of sage and butter, overlaid with Grandmother Margaret's Chanel No. 5. Voices drift from the formal living room, where Brian holds court near the fireplace. His latest startup pitch carries over the classical music Mother insists on playing at every holiday. And that's why NFTs are the future of real estate, Brian announces to a circle of nodding relatives. Madison gets it. She's already invested. I slide my leather folder onto the sideboard, between Mother's wedding china and the silver gravy boat that hasn't been polished since Kennedy was president. Inside, Madison's publication waits like a loaded gun. Charlotte, Aunt Cheryl's voice drips with artificial sweetness. How's the teaching going, dear? Still grading papers at that small college up north? The room ripples with polite laughter. Uncle Robert adjusts his bow tie, the same one he's worn to every Thanksgiving since 1985. Some of us work real jobs, Cheryl. Teaching's more of a calling. Isn't that right, Charlotte? Mother's fingers tighten around her wine stem. She glances between me and the rest of the family, lips pressed into a thin line. The same expression she wore when I turned down law school. Actually, I reached for my folder. I brought something to share. Not another academic article. Brian lifts his scotch in a mock toast. We're here to celebrate Madison making something of herself, even if she couldn't make it today. The leather folder opens with a soft crackle. The journal's glossy cover catches the light from Aunt Carol's Victorian chandelier. My finger traces Madison's name in the author line, then mine as faculty advisor. Madison is making something of herself, I say, my voice steady. She worked for this, actually worked. Grandmother Margaret's hand trembles as she reaches for the journal. Her reading glasses slide down her nose as she scans the publication details. The room goes quiet enough to hear the antique grandfather clock in the hall. Madison almost failed my class. The words land like stones in still water. She wrote beautiful sentences that said nothing, used charm instead of analysis. Counted on her name to carry her through like it always had. Mother's wine glass clinks against her teeth. Brian's startup pitch dies mid-sentence. But, she learned. I stepped closer to the fireplace, where Madison's photos smile down at the gathering. She learned to think, to question, to write something real. That publication isn't about her name. It's about her mind. The silence stretches. Then Cousin Erica, barely 20 herself, starts to clap. The sound echoes against Aunt Carol's crown molding, spreading like ripples until other hands join in. Grandmother Margaret's fingers trace the embossed letters of Princeton's seal on the journal cover. Her mind over the rim of her glasses. For the first time in 35 years, I see something that might be respect. I should go, I say, reaching for my coat. Early class tomorrow. Mother follows me onto the porch, her heels clicking against the painted boards. The air smells of wood smoke and approaching winter. She doesn't speak, just pulls me into an awkward embrace that tastes of Chardonnay and things we've never said. My phone buzzes as I reach my car. Madison's text glows in the gathering dark. They told me what you did. The stone in my stomach dissolves as I type back. Good. Now go write something real. Behind me, light spills from Aunt Carol's windows. Inside, my family studies Madison's publication, seeing her name and maybe mine clearly for the first time. I start my car and drive away from the house that held me small for so long, leaving the silence I've carried since childhood behind on the perfectly manicured lawn. The department chair's blazer still smells of dry cleaning, but now it carries another scent-toothed, sharp, sweet perfume of truth finally spoken. The day before the spring semester officially starts, the Princeton Literature Department letterhead gleams under my desk lamp. Professor Monroe, we are pleased to inform you of your nomination for Professor of the Year. My fingers trace the embossed seal, remembering another piece of paper months ago, Madison's final essay, the one that proved everything could change. A knock at my office door breaks my reverie. Come in. Madison steps inside, her teaching assistant badge catching the afternoon light. Gone are the designer dresses and tennis bracelets. She wears a simple black blazer, her grandmother's pearls her only adornment. The writing applications are ready for review. I gesture to the chair across from my desk, the same one where she once sat in tears over her first C grade. How many applicants this year? 73. Madison's smile reaches her eyes as she settles into the seat, including 3 from Charleston. Apparently, word got around about your first-generation student mentorship program. The irony doesn't escape either of us. A year ago, the family wouldn't acknowledge my career. Now they're sending their children to learn from me. My phone buzzes Mother's weekly check-in. What started as stilted coffee meetings has evolved into something approaching real conversation. Last week, she asked about my research for the first time in 15 years. Did you see what Grandmother sent? Madison pulls an envelope from her bag. Inside, a newspaper clipping features my latest academic publication. Grandmother Margaret's precise handwriting in the margin reads, "Brilliant analysis, Charlotte. We should discuss this over tea." She called last Tuesday. I arranged the clipping next to my nomination letter. Wanted to know if I'd consider giving a guest lecture at her literary society. Madison's laugh holds no bitterness. Remember when she said people teach because they can't do? Now she's practically running my fan club. I sort through the workshop applications, pausing at a familiar name. Brian's daughter applied. He's taking classes at community college now. Madison leans forward, her expression soft. Says he finally understands what we see in education. The afternoon sun slants through my office window, illuminating the photos on my wall. No more family portraits of forced smiles and hollow achievements. Instead, candid shots of graduation ceremonies, student presentations, and one particular image Madison and me presenting our joint research at last month's academic conference. Mother hung your award in the living room. Madison traces the edge of my desk calendar where I've penciled in next week's coffee with cousin Sarah's daughter. Right next to great-grandfather William's Princeton diploma. The old guard and the new. I pull a folder from my drawer labeled in fresh ink. Visible victories. Inside, letters from students whose lives changed in this office. At the top, Madison's first A paper, marked with both our tears. About that, Madison straightens, Professor Mode engaged. I've been thinking about after graduation. I wait, watching her gather her thoughts. She's learned the power of silence, this former queen of rapid-fire charm. I want to teach. Her voice holds the quiet certainty I've come to recognize in my best students. Not just as a TA. I want to do what you do, help people find their real voice, not just their family voice. The setting sun paints Princeton's Gothic architecture in shades of possibility. Through my window, students cross the courtyard, some pausing to wave at their notorious Professor Monroe and her equally notorious TA. I've started a scholarship fund. I hand her a brochure, still warm from the printer. The Monroe Educational Legacy Grant. For students pursuing teaching careers. Madison's breath catches. Below the title, two names listed as program directors. Charlotte Monroe, PhD, and Madison Monroe, BA candidate. You're changing the family legacy. Her fingers trace our names. Not just for us, but for all of them. My lecture hall fills tomorrow with a new semester of students, including 3 young Monroes who chose Princeton's literature program over law school. Their parents' holiday cards no longer carry veiled disappointment, but genuine questions about reading lists and teaching philosophies. We're changing it together. I place Madison's latest student evaluations in the Visible Victories folder. Her students praise her ability to see past their polished veneers to their authentic potential. The campus lights flicker on as dusk approaches. Madison gathers her things, yellow legal pad filled with notes for tomorrow's freshman seminar. At the door, she pauses. You didn't just teach me literature. Her voice carries the weight of transformation. You taught me it's okay to be the person you are, not the person they planned. I watch her walk across the courtyard, her shadow merging with the lengthening evening. Through the leaded glass, our reflections overlap professor and protege, past and future, 2 generations of Monroe women who dared to rewrite their own stories. A text lights up my phone. Mother again. Found your old journals in the attic. You always were a teacher even then. We just weren't ready to see it. I turn back to the workshop applications, each one a chance to extend this legacy of authentic achievement. The Professor of the Year nomination letter catches the last ray of sunlight, no longer a validation I desperately need, but simply a milestone on a road I was always meant to travel. Success isn't measured in family approval or society page mentions. It lives in the quiet moments of recognition, in the courage to speak truth when the room falls silent, in the power to help others find their voice, even when yours has been dismissed. I place Madison's teaching evaluation in the Visible Victories folder and close my office door. Tomorrow brings another chance to prove that the loudest applause often comes from the most unexpected places and that sometimes the greatest legacy is the courage to create your own. I adjust my simple navy dress in the mirror, tugging at the hemline that falls just below my knees. The bathroom light flickers, casting shadows across my face that seem to emphasize every worry line I've earned over the past 6 years. You look like a princess, Mommy. Lila's voice breaks through my critical self-assessment. She stands in the doorway, her brown eyes wide with admiration, clutching Mr. Whiskers, the stuffed cat she's loved since she was 3. Thank you, sweetheart. My hands tremble slightly as I fasten the delicate pearl necklace Lila picked out from my jewelry box, the one Mom gave me for my 16th birthday, back when I was still the daughter they had plans for. I practice a smile in the mirror, but it doesn't reach my eyes. 6 years as a night shift nurse has taught me how to fake alertness at 4 a.m. Surely I can fake confidence for one dinner. Lila fidgets with her yellow sundress, the one we found at the church thrift store last month. Will Aunt Savannah be happy to see us this time? My heart catches. Even at 6, she notices more than I wish she did. Of course she will. The lie tastes bitter on my tongue. The Italian restaurant rises before us like a fortress, its stone facade lit by tasteful spotlights. Valet attendants hustle around gleaming luxury vehicles while soft music drifts through the open doors. I grip my steering wheel tighter, my aging sedan looking painfully out of place among the BMWs and Mercedes. A dent in the passenger door catches the light, a souvenir from the shopping cart that got away from me last month. Is this where we're eating? Lila presses her face against the window, her breath fogging the glass. It's so fancy. Yes, honey. I check my lipstick in the rearview mirror one last time. Remember what we talked about? Best manners tonight. Yes, ma'am. She nods solemnly, but her eyes dance with excitement. I'll be extra good. The hostess's gaze flickers over us, taking in my simple dress and Lila's hand-me-down shoes. Her smile never falters, but something in her eyes shifts when I give our name. Torres anniversary party, I say, my chin lifting slightly. Of course. She consults her tablet. Right this way. We follow her through the restaurant, past tables of well-dressed couples sipping wine, past the central area where conversations flow easily amid soft lighting and fresh flowers. She leads us to the back, where a long table stretches beneath a chandelier. Savannah and Ethan sit at the center like royalty holding court. My sister's blonde highlights catch the light, her diamond earrings winking with every graceful turn of her head. Beside her, Ethan looks handsome in his tailored suit, his expression open and kind, so different from everyone else at the table. The hostess seats us at the far end, where the kitchen doors swing open every few minutes, letting bursts of noise and heat escape. Lila climbs onto her chair, her eyes wide as she takes in the multiple forks and spoons arranged before her. Mom spots us and makes her way over, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She leans in, her perfume enveloping me in a cloud of expensive scent as she air kisses my cheek. You actually look presentable tonight, dear, she whispers, smoothing down my collar as if I were still 12. Thanks, Mom. I keep my voice neutral, even as her words settle like small stones in my stomach. Dad gives a distracted wave from his seat, his eyes never fully meeting mine as he returns to his conversation with Ethan's father. Savannah glides over, champagne flute in hand, her red dress hugging curves that haven't been stretched by childbirth. My big sister finally made it. Her voice carries just enough for the entire table to hear, and with her unsituation. Lila looks up at the unfamiliar word, her brow furrowing. Hi, Savannah. Happy anniversary. I bend to kiss her cheek, ignoring the barb. You remember, Lila? Of course I do. Savannah pats Lila's head like she's a puppy. You've gotten so big. Ethan approaches, his smile genuine as he gives me a brief hug. Danica, good to see you. And Miss Lila, I hear you started kindergarten this year. Lila nods enthusiastically. I can write my whole name now. While Savannah drifts back to the center of the table, Ethan stays, asking Lila about school and complimenting her yellow dress. Something in his kindness makes my throat tighten. The evening progresses with toasts and announcements. Glasses clink as someone proposes a toast to the happy couple's 3rd anniversary. Ethan stands, his face flushed with pride as he announces his construction company's $5 million contract. The table erupts in applause and congratulations. I clap quietly, genuinely happy for him. 2 years ago, he had called me in tears when he lost his job, his voice breaking as he admitted he didn't know how to tell Savannah. I remember staying up after my shift to help him polish his resume, connecting him with a construction site manager I knew from the hospital. Savannah rises for her toast, her champagne glittering under the chandelier light. Her gaze sweeps the table before landing on me. To 3 wonderful years with the most amazing man, she raises her glass. And to many more successes to come. Her smile turns sharp as her eyes lock with mine. I just hope I never end up like some people over 30, single and barely scraping by. The table ripples with uncomfortable laughter. Dad chuckles and adds, Men don't want women with kids already, sweetheart. You dodged that bullet. The words hit me like a physical blow. I stare at my plate, heat rushing to my face as conversations continue around me. Then a small voice beside me cuts through the noise. Mom, why are they laughing at you? Lila's question hangs in the air, innocent and devastating. My hands tremble beneath the table as I struggle to maintain composure. Mom's faint, complicit laugh deepens the wound. Before I can answer, a chair scrapes loudly against the floor. The sound slices through conversation, and the room falls silent. I look up to see Ethan standing, his expression serious. He walks deliberately around the table until he stands beside me. "That wasn't a joke," he says, his voice clear and firm. "That was cruel." Savannah's mouth falls open, shock etched across her perfect features. My parents shift uncomfortably in their seats, looking anywhere but at me. Lila looks up at Ethan with curious eyes, sensing something important is happening. "2 years ago," Ethan continues, "when I was at my lowest point, do you know who was there for me?" He scans the table, his gaze lingering on Savannah. "It wasn't my friends. It wasn't my family. It was Danica." I watch as realization dawns on faces around the table. A memory flashes through my mind. Ethan's desperate phone call. Savannah dismissing his struggles as just a setback. The hours I spent helping him rebuild his confidence while juggling night shifts and raising Lila alone. As Ethan speaks, something shifts inside me. For years, I'd believed their narrative that my life was a cautionary tale, that being a single mother made me less valuable, less worthy. But listening to him now, I begin to see myself through different eyes. "The strongest and kindest person here," Ethan says, his hand resting lightly on my shoulder, "is Danica." Ethan stands beside me, his presence solid and unexpected as the entire room holds its breath. The soft clink of silverware against plates has stopped. Even the waiters hover at the edges, sensing the shift in atmosphere. 2 years ago, Ethan continues, his voice steady but tight with emotion, "I lost my position at Brentwood Construction after the merger. For 3 months, I couldn't find work." His gaze sweeps the table, lingering on Savannah. "I fell into a depression so deep I barely recognized myself. I racked up $6,000 in credit card debt, just keeping up appearances." Savannah shifts in her chair, her perfectly manicured fingers twisting the stem of her wineglass. The diamond on her left hand catches the light, flashing like a warning signal. "Ethan, this isn't the time." "When exactly is the time, Savannah?" His question hangs in the air between them. I stare at my lap, feeling the weight of every eye at the table. The memory of his late-night phone call surfaces, his voice breaking as he admitted he'd been sitting in his car for 2 hours, afraid to tell Savannah he'd been rejected for another position. "While I was struggling," Ethan says, turning slightly toward me, "Danica checked on me weekly. She rewrote my resume at 3 in the morning after finishing a 12-hour shift. She introduced me to Mark Kelly, the site manager at County General who gave me my first contract." Dad clears his throat, uncomfortable with this disruption to the family narrative, but Ethan isn't finished. "Danica was the one who suggested I start my own company instead of chasing another corporate position. She did this while working night shifts, raising Lila alone, and living on a budget so tight she was cutting coupons for groceries." With each revelation, Savannah seems to physically shrink in her seat. Her shoulders curl inward, the confident posture she maintained moments ago collapsing like a soufflé removed too early from the oven. "She even watched James for me when I had my first client meeting," Ethan adds, mentioning their 5-year-old son. "Remember, Savannah? You had that spa weekend with your college friends?" The silence stretches, broken only when Aunt Cheryl's voice rises from 3 seats down. "He's right." Her weathered hand reaches for her water glass. "When I was going through chemo last year and couldn't drive myself to treatments, Danica was the only one who took time off work to help me." The admission seems to open a floodgate. "She helped my Robbie with his nursing school applications," Uncle Frank adds. "Spent hours on the phone walking him through the process." The table buzzes with similar stories, small kindnesses I'd extended over the years, moments I never expected acknowledgement for, certainly not here. Lila looks up at me, her small face a mixture of confusion and pride. "Mom helps everybody," she states with childlike simplicity. Something shifts in my chest, a long-held tightness beginning to unravel. Savannah's face flushes deep crimson. She stands abruptly, her napkin falling to the floor. "I was just joking." Her voice rises, drawing glances from nearby tables. "God, Danica's always been too sensitive. It's not my fault she makes questionable life choices." The words hang in the air, mean and desperate, but they don't sink into my skin the way they would have an hour ago. "Do you have feelings for my sister?" Savannah hurls the accusation at Ethan, her voice brittle with embarrassment. The collective gasp around the table sounds like a sudden gust of wind. Ethan looks at her, disappointment etched across his features. "I have deep respect for her," he says quietly. "Something you should have too." My parents sit frozen, trapped between daughters, unwilling to choose sides when they've spent decades making their preference clear. Mom fiddles with her pearl bracelet while Dad studies the contents of his water glass as if it holds answers. The moment stretches, and in that space, memories surface like bubbles rising in water. Savannah's lavish college graduation party with hired caterers and a live band. While my nursing pinning ceremony warranted only a quick dinner at Olive Garden, the $30,000 they contributed to her wedding, compared to the terse congratulations card when Lila was born. The weekly family dinners that became exercises in comparison, with Savannah's achievements highlighted, while mine were mentioned as afterthoughts, if at all. For years, I've approached these gatherings with the mentality of a supplicant, hoping to earn approval that was freely given to my sister. I've accepted scraps of attention while Savannah feasted on praise. The realization washes over me like warm water. I've been seeking validation from people incapable of giving it. Not because I'm unworthy, but because they cannot see beyond their own narrow vision of success. I stand slowly, my movements deliberate and controlled. The chair legs whisper against carpet. Conversations halt mid-sentence. Thank you, Ethan, for your kindness. My voice comes out softer than expected, but steady. I look around the table, meeting each pair of eyes directly for perhaps the first time. I've spent years trying to earn your respect. Tonight I realized I don't need it anymore. Lila stands beside me, her small hand slipping into mine. The gesture so simple, so profound in its trust, nearly breaks my composure. Ready to go home, sweetheart? I ask her. She nods, then turns to the table. Thank you for inviting us to your party, she says with the impeccable manners I've taught her. The bread was really good. A smile tugs at my lips despite everything. Even Aunt Cheryl chuckles softly. We walk toward the exit, my spine straight, shoulders back. The restaurant's warm lighting casts our silhouettes on the polished floor ahead, a woman and child, moving forward together. Behind us, I sense my parents almost speaking, their mouths opening then closing without sound. Ethan gives me a quiet nod of acknowledgement as we pass. Outside, the night air feels different against my skin. Cleaner somehow. I help Lila into the car, buckling her seatbelt carefully. Are Aunt Savannah and Uncle Ethan still married? She asks, her question startling a laugh from me. Yes, honey. I brush a strand of hair from her forehead. Grown-up relationships are complicated. Grown-up. As we pull away from the restaurant, a weight I've carried so long I'd forgotten its presence begins to lift. My worth was never determined by their approval. Perhaps it never will be. And for the first time, that feels like freedom rather than failure. The car feels too quiet as we pull away from the restaurant. My knuckles turn white against the steering wheel. In the rearview mirror, Lila's face glows pale in the dashboard light, her small fingers fidgeting with Mr. Whisker's worn ear. Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at us? Her voice sounds small in the darkness. I swallow hard, buying time. How do I explain family dysfunction to a 6-year-old? No, sweetheart, they're not mad. Sometimes families disagree about how people should treat each other. Like when Tommy pushed Lucy at recess, and Mrs. Martin said that wasn't respectful. A surprised laugh escapes my throat. Something like that. Everyone deserves respect, even if they're different or make choices others wouldn't make. She considers this, nodding solemnly. I think you deserve lots of respect, Mommy. The tears I've been fighting spring to my eyes, but I blink them back. Thank you, baby. So do you. Back at our apartment, I run a warm bath for Lila, adding the last capful of the bubble solution we've been rationing. The pipes groan as hot water fills the tub, a familiar soundtrack to our modest life. While Lila splashes, I sit on the closed toilet lid, letting the steam wash away the restaurant's lingering perfume. Can we read 2 stories tonight? Lila asks as I wrap her in our threadbare but clean towel. Just one tonight. It's late. I help her into pajamas dotted with faded stars. After teeth brushing and prayers, I tuck her into bed. The sheets smell of the lavender sachet I made last month, a small luxury that cost nothing but time. Mommy? Her voice catches as I turn to leave. Are we going to be okay? I sit back down, the mattress dipping beneath my weight. Yes, Lila, we have each other, and that's enough. After she falls asleep, I sit at our tiny kitchen table, bills spread before me like tarot cards predicting my future. Only then do I allow the tears to fall, hot and silent, dropping onto an overdue electric notice. I give myself exactly 5 minutes to cry. Then I wipe my face with a paper towel, take a deep breath, and pick up my pen. There's still enough in my account to cover the electric bill if I put off buying new shoes until next month. I make the necessary calculations, my nursing school math serving me well. Morning brings a barrage of notifications on my phone, 3 missed calls from Mom. A text from Dad that simply reads, "Call your mother." Savannah's message appears at 7 a.m. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is." Ethan was completely out of line. I delete it without responding and wake Lila for school. Later, as I'm rushing to drop Lila at Mrs. Winters' is before my shift, a text from Aunt Cheryl brings an unexpected smile. "You showed real class, dear. Always knew you had your grandmother's backbone." The last message comes from Ethan. I meant every word. "Thank you for everything." I slip my phone into my pocket without replying. Some messages don't need answers, they just need to be received. At work, I move differently. The night shift unfolds as it always does: medication rounds, vitals, checks, charting, but something has shifted inside me. I stand straighter. I speak with more authority when calling the on-call doctor about a patient's dropping oxygen levels. "You seem different lately, Danica." My supervisor, Martha, comments 3 weeks later as we share coffee in the break room. More confident. I shrug, but privately acknowledge the truth in her words. "I'm applying for the night shift supervisor position," I say instead. Martha's eyebrows rise, then she smiles. "About time. The application closes Friday. I'll put in a good word." My coworkers rally around me with unexpected enthusiasm. Ellen from Pediatrics offers to help with my resume. James from the ER suggests books on leadership that helped him advance. Their support stands in stark contrast to my family's dismissal. Lila thrives too. Her kindergarten teacher sends home a note about her exceptional empathy with classmates. She shows me a drawing labeled, "My Family," with just 2 stick figures, one tall, one small, both with enormous smiles and joined hands. "That's us," she says, pointing proudly. "Just us." I tape it to our refrigerator, right next to the chart tracking our new beginning jar, where we drop spare change and single-dollar bills whenever we can. The jar sits on our counter like a promise, catching sunlight through our kitchen window. We create small rituals of celebration. Tuesday becomes homemade pizza night, the dough rising on our counter while Lila does homework. Saturday mornings, we decorate the sidewalk outside our apartment building with chalk masterpieces that wash away with the afternoon rain. We read library books under a blanket fort, whispering stories like secrets between us. 3 months after the dinner, Martha calls me into her office. Her face gives nothing away as she gestures to the chair across from her desk. "The hospital administration reviewed all the applications for night shift supervisor," she begins, shuffling papers with maddening slowness. My heart sinks. I've been allowing myself to hope, calculating what the modest salary increase would mean. Maybe a 2-bedroom in a slightly better neighborhood, piano lessons for Lila, an emergency fund that wouldn't be depleted by a single car repair. "And they've decided to offer you the position," Martha finishes, her serious expression breaking into a wide grin. "Congratulations, Danica." That evening, my colleagues surprise me with a small cake in the break room. "To Nurse Torres," Ellen says, raising a paper cup of sparkling cider. "Our new night supervisor." At home, I open my laptop and pull up apartment listings I've bookmarked over the past months but never had the courage to pursue. With trembling fingers, I send an inquiry about a 2-bedroom unit in Willow Creek Apartments. "What are you looking at?" "Him," Lila asks, peering over my shoulder. "Maybe a new place for us to live," I answer, scrolling through photos of a small but sunny apartment with a patch of grass outside. Her eyes widen. "Can I have yellow walls in my room? Like sunshine?" I kiss the top of her head. "Maybe we can, baby. Maybe we can." 2 weeks later, my phone lights up with my mother's number. I stare at it, thumb hovering over the screen. The last time we spoke was the night of the dinner. I answer on the 4th ring. "Hello?" "Danica." My mother's voice sounds older somehow. "Your father and I miss Lila. We were thinking you both could come for Sunday lunch." The invitation hangs between us, laden with unspoken tensions. I take a deep breath. We can visit for an hour, but I need to know that Lila and I will be treated with respect. The silence stretches so long I wonder if she's hung up. Finally, a sigh. "Yes, of course. 1 o'clock?" After hanging up, I meet Sarah for coffee. Our daughters play together in the park while we watch from a bench, steam rising from our cups against the autumn chill. You did what many of us wish we could do, Sarah says when I tell her about setting boundaries with my family. A fellow nurse and single mother, she understands the delicate balance we maintain daily. I'm terrified, I admit. Part of me still wants their approval. She squeezes my hand. That part never quite goes away. But you're teaching Lila something powerful by standing up for yourself. That day, I helped a new nurse named Rachel rearrange her schedule to accommodate her son's therapy appointments. The relief in her eyes when I approved the changes without hesitation reminds me of my own struggles. My last supervisor made me feel like my son was an inconvenience, she says, voice thick with emotion. Your son is the reason you work so hard, I reply. Never apologize for being a good mother. With my first supervisor paycheck, I enroll Lila in piano lessons at the community center. We find a small keyboard at a secondhand store, its scratched case hiding surprisingly good sound. It's not perfect, I warn Lila as we set it up in our living room. She runs her fingers over the keys, producing a delicate trickle of notes. It's beautiful, she declares, and in that moment, through her eyes, it truly is. 6 months after the dinner that changed everything, we move into our new apartment. Sunshine streams through windows larger than our old place. The kitchen has countertops without cracks. The bathroom faucet doesn't drip. Leela races from room to room, her excitement infectious. When she reaches her bedroom, she stops, a gasp escaping her lips. You painted it yellow. The landlord let me, I explain, smiling at her joy. I did it yesterday while you were at Sarah's. That evening, after unpacking the essentials, I hang our family photos. There aren't many, just Lila's school pictures, a candid shot of us at the park, the Polaroid a nurse took of us the day she was born. No extended family portraits, no holiday gatherings, just us. And somehow, that seems right. As twilight bathes our new home in golden light, Leela practices her piano. The simple melody fills our apartment, wrapping around us like a blessing. I sit by the window, watching her small fingers move across the keys, her face a study in concentration. At this moment of quiet triumph, I finally recognize my own reflection in my daughter's determined expression. We built this life together, one small victory at a time. And while the road hasn't been easy, I wouldn't trade this hard-won peace for anything. The fluorescent hospital lights wash over the nursing schedule board as I make my final adjustments. My pen moves with confidence, shifting names and times into a pattern that seems obvious now but took weeks to envision. You're actually doing it, Sarah whispers beside me, her eyes wide with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. The schedule everyone said couldn't be fixed. I step back, surveying my handiwork. The rotation allows parents to be home for dinner 3 nights a week, gives everyone 1 weekend off per month, and still maintains coverage for all shifts. No more mothers missing dance recitals, no more fathers working 6 nights straight. Torres. Hospital Administrator Stevens appears in the doorway, clipboard tucked under his arm, his usual expression of mild disapproval replaced by something I can't quite read. A word? Sarah squeezes my arm as I follow him to his office, the click of my practical shoes echoing down the corridor. He sits behind his desk, reviewing my proposal with careful attention. Your approach has reduced turnover by 15% in the trial period. He looks up, his gaze direct. The board wants to implement it hospital-wide. Pride blooms in my chest, warm and unfamiliar. Thank you, sir. Credit where it's due. He hands me the approved paperwork. Janet mentioned you might consider pursuing your MSN. The hospital has scholarship options. Walking back to the nurses' station, I feel a lightness in my step that hasn't been there in years. The afternoon brings unexpected visitors. Ethan's familiar figure appears at the entrance, blueprints tucked under his arm. Behind him follows a tall man with salt and pepper hair and laugh lines etched around kind eyes. Surprise inspection, Ethan jokes, approaching the desk. Actually, we're meeting with Stevens about the new pediatric wing. He gestures to his companion. Danica, this is David Whitman. He owns Whitman Paint and Supply. David, this is Danica Torres, nursing supervisor, and the reason I'm still in business. David extends his hand. His palm is warm and calloused, his handshake firm without being domineering. Ethan speaks highly of you. Says you're the most competent person he knows. Heat rushes to my face. He exaggerates. I doubt that. David's smile reaches his eyes, crinkling the corners. My company is handling all the specialty coatings for the children's wing. Antimicrobial paints, low VOC finishes. David's a widower, Ethan adds with all the subtlety of a freight train. His son James is 14. I shoot Ethan a look that makes him grin unrepentantly. How old is your daughter? David asks, seemingly unaware of Ethan's matchmaking attempt. Lila's 6. She just started piano lessons. James plays too, reluctantly. His laugh is warm, resonant, though he prefers his electric guitar, much to our neighbor's dismay. Our conversation flows with surprising ease. David asks thoughtful questions about pediatric care environments. I share insights about color psychology for healing spaces. When Stephen summons them for their meeting, David lingers a moment. Would you be open to getting coffee sometime? To discuss the project, of course. His voice carries a hint of uncertainty that somehow makes him more appealing. Before I can respond, Ethan answers for me. She's free Thursday afternoon. Lila has piano then, right? I nod, torn between annoyance at Ethan's presumption and gratitude for his confidence in me. Thursday would work. As they walk away, Ethan turns to give me a thumbs up behind David's back. I shake my head, but can't suppress a smile. The next morning, I'm pushing a cart through Westfield Market when I spot a familiar blonde head in the produce section. Savannah stands alone, examining avocados with unnecessary concentration. I consider slipping away, but Lila has already spotted her. Aunt Savannah, she calls, waving enthusiastically. Savannah looks up, her perfectly composed features registering surprise. She hesitates, then approaches with a gift bag I hadn't noticed she was carrying. Lila. Danica. Her voice lacks its usual sharp edge. She holds out the bag to Lila. I saw this and thought of you. Inside is a music book with simplified versions of Disney songs. Lila clutches it to her chest, beaming. Thank you, I'm learning piano now. An awkward silence stretches between us adults until Savannah clears her throat. Ethan said you moved to Willow Creek Apartments. How is it? The question seems genuine, lacking her usual judgment. It's nice. Lila has her own room. There's a park nearby. Savannah nods, her fingers fidgeting with her wedding ring. That's good. That's really good. We exchange a few more stilted pleasantries before parting ways. As we walk away, Lila looks up at me. Aunt Savannah seemed different. Yes, I murmur. She did. Thursday arrives with unexpected butterflies in my stomach. I haven't been on a date since before Lila was born. The nurses at the station notice my distraction. Girl, he called the hospital specifically asking for you. Marissa teases as I check my lipstick for the third time. That's some romance novel stuff right there. I roll my eyes but can't help smiling. It's coffee to discuss the pediatric wing project. Sure it is. She winks dramatically. That's why you're wearing your good jeans and actually put on mascara. The cafe David suggested sits halfway between the hospital and Lila's piano teacher's house. When I arrive, he's already there, a newspaper folded beside his coffee cup. He stands when he sees me, his smile warm. I wasn't sure how you take your coffee, he says after we exchange greetings. So I waited. Black with 1 sugar, I reply, touched by the consideration. Our conversation moves naturally from the hospital project to our children, to our journeys as single parents. David lost his wife to cancer 4 years ago. The grief still shadows his eyes when he mentions her, but doesn't consume him. The hardest part, he admits, was figuring out how to be both parents. James needed his mother's gentleness, but I only knew how to be his father. I nod, understanding completely. For me, it was the practical stuff, fixing things, teaching Lila what her father should have taught her. Does he see her at all? David asks carefully. He left when I was 5 months pregnant. He's in Seattle now with a new family. I'm surprised by how little pain accompanies the words now. David doesn't offer platitudes or outrage on my behalf. Instead, he asks about Lila's piano lessons. His genuine interest in my daughter means more than any compliment he could pay me. When we part ways, he walks me to my car. I'd like to see you again, Danica. Maybe dinner next time? For once, I don't overthink my response. I'd like that too. Sunday arrives with familiar dread as Lila and I pull up to my parents' house for lunch. The modest brick home looks exactly as it has for 20 years. My mother's roses blooming precisely along the walkway. Dad opens the door before we knock. His eyes soften at the sight of Lila, though his greeting to me remains awkward. "How's the new position treating you?" The question feels like an olive branch, however clumsy. It's challenging, but good. Mom bustles out from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "I always knew you'd make supervisor someday," she announces, as if she hadn't expressed doubt about every career decision I've ever made. I don't contradict her. Instead, I help set the table while Lila shows them her progress in the music book Savannah gave her. Their stiff praise gradually warms as she plays Twinkle Twinkle with careful concentration. Lunch passes without barbed comments or comparisons to Savannah. The conversation remains on safe topics: Dad's garden, Mom's church committee, Lila's school projects. It's not warmth exactly, but it's not frost either. Something in between, like early spring. 9 months after the anniversary dinner disaster, my apartment fills with laughter and conversation. Sarah chases her daughter Zoe through the living room, while Aunt Cheryl arranges cheese and crackers on the coffee table. 3 of my nursing colleagues crowd around the kitchen island, debating the hospital's new electronic records system. The doorbell rings, and Lila races to answer it. "They're here!" David and James enter bearing a potted plant and homemade cookies. Behind them, I catch a glimpse of our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Fitzgerald, whom David insisted we invite after learning she had no family nearby. "Sorry, we're late," David says, kissing my cheek. James insisted on making the cookies from scratch. The teenager rolls his eyes but looks pleased at the recognition. He immediately seeks out Lila, who adores him with the fervor only a 6-year-old can muster for a cool teenage boy. "Ladies and gentlemen," Lila announces with theatrical formality, "I will now perform my recital pieces." Everyone gathers around our second-hand upright piano as Lila plays 3 simple songs, her small fingers careful on the keys. When she finishes For Elise, simplified for beginners, the applause is genuine and enthusiastic. David's arm slips around my waist as we watch James show Lila a new chord progression. "She's remarkable," he murmurs, "just like her mother." I look around the room at these people who've become my chosen family. Sarah, who understands single motherhood's challenges. Aunt Cheryl, who always believed in me. My colleagues, who respect my professional judgment. And David, who sees me clearly and values what he sees. The contrast with last year's anniversary dinner couldn't be starker. There, I was diminished and dismissed. Here, I am celebrated and seen. Lila's laughter rings out as James teaches her a silly song about a walrus. David's hand finds mine, warm and steady. At this moment, surrounded by genuine affection, I realize I've created something precious. A circle of love built on respect, rather than obligation. A family of choice. The invitation arrives on cream-colored stationery, edged with gold foil. I flip it between my fingers, my stomach tightening as I read the embossed script. Celebrating 4 years of marriage. Savannah and Ethan Pitt. Same restaurant, same family. 1 year later. Lila spots the card as she arranges her homework on the kitchen table. "What's that, Mommy?" An invitation to Aunt Savannah and Uncle Ethan's anniversary dinner. The memory of last year's humiliation flashes through my mind, Lila's innocent question. The table's uncomfortable laughter, my hands trembling beneath the tablecloth. "Are we going?" Lila asks, her pencil hovering above her math worksheet. "I'm not sure yet." Later, after tucking Lila into bed, I call Ethan. His voice sounds cautious when he answers. "I wanted to talk about the invitation," I say, curling up in the corner of my sofa. "Things are different now," he says. "Savannah has been seeing a therapist. After you left last year, it changed things." I twist the phone cord around my finger, remembering how Ethan stood beside me that night, his voice cutting through the cruelty. "I appreciate that, but I need to protect Lila." "I understand." The next evening, David and I walk through the park near my apartment building, Lila running ahead to the swings. "What are you afraid will happen if you go?" he asks as we settle onto a bench. "That nothing has changed, that they'll just find subtler ways to make me feel small." David takes my hand, his thumb brushing over my knuckles. "You've grown stronger. You can handle this on your terms." His confidence in me becomes the push I need. That night, I call my sister directly. "Before I accept, I need to know what to expect," I tell Savannah, my voice firmer than it's ever been with her. The pause on the line stretches until I wonder if she's hung up. Then, "I'd like us to try again." Another pause. "I've been working on myself." The vulnerability in her voice surprises me. It doesn't sound like the sister who has always moved through life with perfect confidence. Okay, I say finally. We'll come. Saturday afternoon finds Lila and me at the department store, something we rarely do. Last year's borrowed clothes and thrift store finds have been replaced with a sense of choice that comes with my supervisor's salary. Lila twirls in a purple dress with tiny flowers embroidered around the hem. This one, please, Mom? I check the price tag and nod. It's perfect. For myself, I select a simple emerald dress that fits well across my shoulders and cinches at the waist. The color brings out flecks of green in my eyes that I've never noticed before. At home, as I curl Lila's hair, I try to explain what forgiveness means. Sometimes people hurt us without meaning to. I tell her, separating another section of hair. Like when Emma said my lunch smelled funny? Something like that. And sometimes, if they're truly sorry, we can give them another chance. But not always. She looks up at me with those wise eyes. No, sweetie, not always. I set the curling iron down. We're going to see if Aunt Savannah and Grandma and Grandpa are ready for their second chance. David picks us up at 6:30, whistling softly when he sees us. You two look beautiful. He kisses my cheek and helps Lila into his car, her purple dress carefully arranged so it won't wrinkle. In the passenger seat, I smooth my hands over my own dress, grateful for his steady presence. I'll pick you up at 9, he promises as he drops us off. Just text if you need me earlier. The restaurant looks exactly as I remember: stone facade, valet attendants, luxury cars. But this time, I walk through the door with my head high, Lila's hand warm in mine. The hostess smiles without a trace of last year's judgment. The Torres party is expecting you. We're barely inside when Savannah approaches, her hands clasped before her. She wears a simple black dress, her hair pulled back in a low twist. The usual sparkle of diamonds is absent from her ears. You came, she says. Thank you. Her eyes dart to Lila, then back to me. I notice the slight tremble in her fingers, the uncertainty in her posture. This isn't the Savannah I've known all my life. Your dress is so pretty, she tells Lila, bending slightly. There's a special kids' table with your cousins, if you'd like to join them. Lila looks up at me for permission. I nod, and she follows Savannah's gesture to where 3 children sit at a smaller table adorned with coloring books and crayons. The main table is arranged differently this year. When I approach, I see my place setting near the center, nowhere near the swinging kitchen doors. My mother stands, her embrace stiff but genuine. You look lovely, Danica, she says, and I detect no backhanded compliment in her words. My father clears his throat. Good to see you both made it. Ethan pulls out my chair with a knowing smile. Glad you're here. Throughout dinner, I notice the subtle shifts. Conversations include, rather than exclude me. When I mention my promotion, my parents ask follow-up questions. The cruel undercurrents of last year have been replaced with something fragile but real. After the main course, Savannah rises for her toast, champagne flute in hand. I brace myself instinctively. This year has taught me about what matters, she says, her gaze traveling around the table before landing on me. Some people show strength in ways we don't always recognize. The words aren't specifically an apology, but her eyes tell a different story. When Ethan stands for his own toast, he mentions his company's growth and adds, "None of this would have been possible without my support network." His glance in my direction isn't lost on anyone at the table. Later, while selecting desserts from the buffet table, my mother appears beside me. We stand in uncomfortable silence until she speaks. "We didn't see you clearly," she says, arranging strawberries on her plate with excessive care. "I'm sorry for that." The words I've waited years to hear arrive without fanfare, between the chocolate fountain and the petite fours. "I needed your support, not your judgment," I reply, my voice low but steady. My father joins us, hands in his pockets. "Your mother's right, we favored Savannah. Always have." He offers no excuse, no justification, just a simple acknowledgement that hangs between us. I look at their aging faces, seeing for the first time the insecurities behind their criticism of my choices. We'll see where we go from here. Near the end of the evening, Savannah touches my elbow. "Can we talk? Outside?" The night air is cool against my skin as we stand on the restaurant's stone patio. Savannah wraps her arms around herself, suddenly looking very young. "I was so jealous of your strength," she says, tears gathering in her eyes. It was easier to mock than admire. Jealous? Of me? The words sound impossible. You've always known exactly who you are. You make decisions and stick with them, even when they're hard. She wipes at her cheek. Ethan and I have been trying for a baby for 3 years. Nothing's working. The fertility treatments are breaking me, and our marriage nearly fell apart last summer. The confession pours out of her like water through a broken dam. All the perfect pictures on social media, the flawless family image, hiding a reality as complicated as my own. I listen without rushing to comfort her. This pain doesn't erase what came before. But something shifts in me as I see my sister truly see her perhaps for the first time. Maybe we can start again, I say finally. Not like before, something new. I'd like that. She hesitates, then opens her arms for a hug. I step forward, allowing the embrace but not sinking into it. Before we leave, the family gathers for a photo. I stand beside my sister, no longer relegated to the edges. Lila beams between her grandparents, comfortable in a way she hasn't been before. When David arrives to pick us up, I introduce him to everyone. Savannah asks about his paint supply business with what seems like genuine interest. Ethan watches us with a knowing smile, as if pleased by how much has changed. In the car, Lila falls asleep almost immediately, her head against the window, purple dress rumpled from an evening of play with her cousins. How was it? David asks quietly. I look back at the restaurant, at the family still visible through the windows. Forgiveness doesn't erase the past, I say, thinking of my sister's tears, my parents' halting apologies. It creates space for a different future. As we pull away, I feel something loosen in my chest, not the complete release of all hurts, but the first breath of something new. 2 years later, I stand at the edge of my garden, early evening sun warming my shoulders. The clay pots of basil and rosemary release their scent when I brush my fingers across their leaves. My garden. My home. Words I never thought would belong together. Through the open windows, Lila's piano music drifts out a simplified version of Beethoven's Ode to Joy that James taught her last weekend. Her playing has improved remarkably in the year since we moved in. At 8, she attacks the keys with confidence that makes my heart swell. Inside, framed photographs tell our story better than words could. Lila feeding ducks with mom and dad at the city park. Savannah and me laughing over coffee, our faces reflected in the cafe window. David and me at the hospital fundraiser, his hand resting comfortably at my waist. The whole family gathered in this very backyard 3 months ago. Smoke rising from the grill as Dad taught James how to check if the burgers were done. Almost finished. Lila calls out when she notices me watching through the window. Her fingers trip over a difficult passage, but she recovers quickly. James has been a patient teacher, his teenage awkwardness falling away whenever he sits beside Lila at the piano bench. My phone buzzes with a text from Sarah. How did the presentation go? Earlier today, I spoke to a support group for single mothers at the community center. My message was simple but hard-won. Your worth isn't determined by those who cannot see it clearly. 20 women listened as I shared my journey from that humiliating anniversary dinner to today. I told them about boundaries without bitterness, about forgiveness that doesn't invite further harm. Build your circle with those who value you, I advised, watching understanding bloom across tired faces. The hospital administration had been surprisingly supportive when I requested afternoon leave for the presentation. 2 years ago, they might have questioned a night nurse stepping into an educator role. Now, as I work toward my advanced nursing degree, they see me as an investment rather than an inconvenience. A car pulls into the driveway, David's silver sedan with the small dent on the passenger door, where James backed into a mailbox during a driving lesson. He steps out balancing takeout containers and his briefcase. Our eyes meet across the yard, and his smile deepens the laugh lines around his eyes. Thai food as requested, he announces, holding up the bags. And I found that gardening book you wanted. I meet him halfway, accepting both the food and the quick kiss he offers. Perfect timing. Lila's almost done practicing. In the kitchen, David sets the table, while I pour water into glasses with lemon slices. The domesticity of it all still surprises me, this comfortable rhythm we've built over months of Sunday dinners and Tuesday movie nights. So, he says casually, leaning against the counter, have you thought about my proposal? Last weekend on this very porch, David got down on one knee. I asked for time to think, not because I was uncertain, but because I wanted to savor the moment, to be absolutely present in this decision, rather than swept away. I have, I reply, feeling a smile warm my face. And yes, on one condition, Lila gets to help plan the wedding. His laughter fills the kitchen. I wouldn't have it any other way. My phone buzzes again. Savannah asking if we're still on for Saturday's appointment at the adoption agency. After years of fertility treatments, she and Ethan decided to build their family differently. When she asked me to come along for moral support, I recognized the gesture for what it was, a bridge spanning years of rivalry. Sunday dinner at my parents' home has become a peaceful tradition rather than an ordeal. Mom actually listens when I share stories about the nursing mentorship program I started. Dad proudly recorded every minute of Lila's spring piano recital on his new smartphone. As dusk settles over the garden, I watch the first fireflies of the season blink between the rose bushes. Inside, Lila's music fills our home, while David sets out dinner. In a few minutes, James will arrive from his friend's house, completing our circle. Sometimes the greatest gift in life is discovering your own worth, even when others miss it. The journey from that restaurant to this garden wasn't a straight line, but every difficult step led me here to this moment, this peace, this life built on my own terms. Your worth is not determined by those who cannot see it clearly. It is revealed in how you rise each time they try to diminish you.